We're going to move this as fast as we can. We have one of our members that's not feeling real well. Before we begin, I would like to ask Mr. Is Jimmy Dale here? I don't see Jimmy Dale here. Donnie, would you like to say the invocation, please? Mr. Donnie Skaggs. Amen. I would, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Judge Jones?
Present.
Commissioner Robertson?
Here.
Commissioner Tackett?
Here.
Commissioner Booth?
Here.
We have a quorum and we are ready to proceed. The next item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask Mr. Grondel Potter, who is a United States Navy veteran, to lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Grondel, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the March 19, April 2nd, and April 16, 2019 meetings of the Pike County Fiscal Court. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for those dates?
Motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Booth. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Tackett. Is there any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. And while we're at this, Madam Clerk, I'm going to hand you the signed copies so that we don't end up in the same position that prior administrations and not having them signed. The first item on the agenda was a proclamation naming the month of May Older Americans Month. We have signed that proclamation and we are ready to proceed to the second item on the agenda. And I would like to ask a very special guest, and we have her first on the agenda because she's kind enough to make sure that we have money to work on our roads and pave our county roads. I would like to ask District 12 Chief Highway Engineer Mary Hobart to come up to the table up front. She has a presentation to make. Two matters of business here before the court. And the first matter, Mary, welcome. Thank you for everything that you do for Pike County and all the folks in District 12. And I had the pleasure of working with you for many years in my prior capacity.
Yes.
And you have been extremely helpful every time I've ever called, and we greatly appreciate your work. Would you begin by explaining to us, you called me last week talking about a Kentucky Department of Transportation application for a U.S. Department of Transportation build grant and approval for matching funds from Pike County in the amount of $500,000. Would you explain this? I've tried to get this information to other members on the court, but may not have conveyed the exact nature of this project correctly. So if you would, please proceed.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me today. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking real loud. The FHWA reached out to all the states and offered each state, I think there's $900 million available for U.S. DOT build grants. So our governor and our secretary gave each district a chance to offer two projects, and we offered the Kentucky 194 project out to the Kellogg Cookie Factory. I still refer to it as the Cookie Factory. The projects needed to be in the neighborhood of $25 million. So Frankfurt has selected our project, Kentucky 194, to represent Kentucky in the running to be selected, hopefully, by U.S. DOT. So what we asked the judge, it's a $16 million project. And it's been our experience that the project should be in the name of the local government. They seem to get better attention that way. So we would like for you all to let us put it in the name of Pike County Fiscal Court. And they'd like to see that the locals have put a buy-in. And so it's an 80-20 program where the state and the local government would put up 20%, which we're asking you to put in $500,000, and KYTC will put $3.1 million in. And we will do all the applications, everything that needs to be done, and then submit that to USDOT.
Would you tell us a little bit more about the scope of the project? So this will come across from US 119, the intersection at 194, and it will go down past the Kellogg's factory, is that correct?
Yes, it extends from right there at the bottom of the ramp on 119 to just past the Kellogg factory. It's a widening project where we are going to widen, we're going to take out some of the curves, make the super elevations much better, and it's going to be 12-foot lanes with 6-foot shoulders. And when you get to the Kellogg factory, we'll have turn lanes that they've been wanting for many years on both ends of their factory. One side, as you come from Pike, we'll have 2 turn lanes for the large trucks, and on the further end, it will just have 1 turn lane. But we'll be taking out a lot of curves and just making the curvature better and hopefully straightening the road out.
So three weeks ago, Judge Hickman and Commissioner Robertson and myself went over and sat down with the management at Kellogg's talking about what we could do to help. And one of the concerns they've had is that there have been several individuals with employees who have been hurt on that stretch of road, and it is a dangerous stretch. I know before I left the General Assembly that we had put a substantial amount of money in the budget to improve 194 all the way to Phelps.
Yes.
Have you heard any talk about the status of those projects?
We did a planning study all the way to Phelps. Of course, we had to divide it up into smaller, I don't have the numbers with me, but we had to divide it up into smaller projects. And in the last 6-year plan, it wasn't in the 6-year plan. But we have been able to do several of what we call HSIP projects, which are safety projects. You'll see those coming on up to Kemper and then on up into Phelps, where we straighten some of the curves out, just do spot improvements along 194 until we can get the entire project into the 6-year plan.
One of the big problems, I think it's fair to say, is that with the declining gas prices, that has had the average wholesale price falling, has had an adverse impact on the state's road fund. Is that
Yes, absolutely.
And that's jeopardized some of the projects that have been on the drawing board at District 12 for some time.
Well, from what we hear, if we don't get some type of increase in funding, the next 6-year plan will look very slim. Won't have a lot of new projects. We'll be just finishing what's on the books.
While you're here, any resurfacing projects that are planned for 119 or US 23, the major arteries through Pike County?
We do have a couple of big projects. Joe Stanley is sitting in the back. He can answer some more, I guess. We do have some. I know one of the places I get a lot of calls is Kentucky 122 from Indian Creek headed toward Abner. We've got a resurfacing project. And on US 460, I don't see one on 23, but we have one starting on the Letcher County line, which gets really rough after you cross the Letcher County line going that way, but I don't think we have one in Pike County.
Joe's been very helpful. We appreciate having him here. He's a veteran of the Pike County Fiscal Court, and he's been very helpful to the members of the court. We also have 31st District State Senator Philip Wheeler here. Senator, welcome. Appreciate having you here. And as you've heard, we need additional revenue for our rural and secondary roads and our county road system. So if any help you could give us in Frankfort on that would be greatly appreciated. Senator, come on up and have a seat.
Thank you, Judge. Yes, I think that Ms. Holbrook and I actually, the last time that I was in Frankfurt, we arranged a meeting. Ms. Holbrook gave me an excellent briefing on the situation of our roads in Pike County. As I'm sure from your experience in this job, you know she knows her job well, and she gave me a list of priorities for this district, many of which you and former Representative Combs had done a very good job of making sure that Eastern Kentucky's roads were placed into the plan. Unfortunately, due to the funding problems that you mentioned, it has stalled several projects, but she made it clear that the issue with the cookie factory, considering one of the largest, I guess, what you might call industrial stable employers that we have left in this county, that meeting their needs was a priority, and I made Secretary Thomas aware of that, and it sounds like those subsequent discussions have been very productive, and I'm pleased to hear that. And I think that your remark about the gas tax is something that I know I talked to the Transportation Committee Chairman, Senator Harris. He's well aware of the issue, and hopefully there will be some revenue in the budget next year, since I guess under the current state we're really leaving federal funds on the table by not meeting our obligations as the Commonwealth to get that money into the budget.
Yeah, I mean, without the state match, you're going to lose, you know, we almost lost money on US 460 a few years back. But again, thank you for being here. Only piece of advice I have is be very nice to Mary, because she can make your life a lot easier as state senator.
She really did. Just had an outstanding presentation, and had every project in the district out there neat, and even to some degree in order as to where we could do the most good. So it was really, she did a great job.
Thank you.
Mary, the issue in terms of, you know, the first issue with the budget, you know, the budget that I presented to the court about I guess last week on the 30th, or actually it was May 1st, was $1 million less, even with the FEMA disaster money, than what the court had operated under, the current budget we're operating under. Coal severance tax is down $500,000. Today we looked at the numbers for the occupational net profits tax, and occupational's up about 128, but net profits down about 104 or 5, so it's about a $20-some thousand increase. The only source of funding that I would think, besides single county coal severance tax, which we're going to talk about the other project that you're here on, with that being the Wolf Pit deed, would be the LGEDF recaptured money. And I don't think that we have to have anything other than a request to DLG. Is that correct, Frankie? We don't have to have under the budget language the consent of the legislators. At the end of April 30th, there was $810,311.63 in our LGDEF, Local Government Economic Development Fund recapture account that can only be used for economic development. That would be a potential source to do this. This $16 million project that would be local people most likely doing a lot of the work. It would have a safety factor, improving safety on that corridor of the road, and obviously be of help to one of our largest employers. Are there any questions by the members of the court?
I'm just excited to see this happen.
Would the members of the court be inclined to authorize a drawdown of $500,000 as matching money if we are selected for the grant? I mean, if we authorize it, Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, that doesn't mean that we're going to be
Right.
selected.
What I really need is your commitment and the authorization for us to go ahead and do the application in the name of Pike County Fiscal Court.
Commissioner Robertson? We have a motion by Commissioner Robertson to authorize, let me correctly state this, it's on the agenda. You have a motion by Commissioner Robertson to authorize the Pike County Fiscal Court to join the Kentucky Department of Transportation in filing a U.S. DOT build grant and seeking approval for and authorizing matching funds in the amount of $500,000 from Pike County's LGDEF recaptured account, as well as authorizing the Pike County Fiscal Court to be the grant applicant
Yes.
and to execute all necessary documents to process the grant. Is that correctly
Yes.
stated? All right. So we have a motion by Commissioner Roberts. Is that correct? Just to be clarified, so we have a motion along those lines by Commissioner Robertson. Is that correct? And we have a second by Commissioner Booth. Is there any other question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. And Frankie, if we could go ahead and send a letter to DLG detailing this project and see if we can get tentative approval if we're chosen by the USDOT for this grant. So that way we'll know for sure if we can use that source of money, Mary. The only other source we would have would be the LGDEF single county account. But I think it's a good project, and I appreciate you bringing it for us.
Absolutely. I appreciate your endorsement of it, and we look forward and hope that we're selected.
All right. The other matter that you have before the court is the approval for the execution of a deed of conveyance with the Commonwealth of Kentucky on behalf of the Transportation Cabinet for the excess material site at the left fork of Wolf Pit Branch. This is the deed we've been waiting on for some time so that the county can create finally an industrial site in the county tax base to try to help bring some business on the new 460 corridor. Could you explain that for us, please?
Well, when US 460 was originally designed, we were charged by the Governor Patton at that time to any excess material sites that we would create in the construction of US 460, that they be built for industrial development and/or housing. And we had to build the fields in certain parameters, but we have the one at Wolf Pit ready to turn over to Pike County for your use.
Well, I know we had to go through the Federal Highway Administration to get approval.
Yes,
and,
it's been around the world to get the deed signed, but we eventually have gotten everything signed, and I have the plat for you, Jenny, for you to record.
Okay, the other issue is, did the state reserve the rear portion of that track in case that money becomes available to build a new road maintenance garage?
I'm sure you're aware of, our Shelby garage is in very bad condition, and so we selected to take the very back of that particular field to keep for our Shelby garage at such time as the legislators give us the money to build a new garage.
And how many total acres will be deeded to the fiscal court?
I don't have that memorized.
It's 30-plus acres, I believe,
I think
my
it's-
memory serves.
It's 81 acres
Is
total.
it total 81?
Yes.
How much, do you know how much, I know part of that goes over over an embankment. I'm not sure. I think it was 30 to 35 maybe usable somewhere in there.
Usable acres, yes. I have a drawing at the office that breaks all that down, but yeah. I think it was probably around 30 to 40 usable acres, and I think there's a couple of terraces already built on there. And then the road's been asphalt, excuse my voice, the road has been asphalted all the way to the top.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the execution of a deed of conveyance with the Commonwealth of Kentucky on behalf of the Transportation Cabinet for the excess material at the site on the left fork of Wolf Pit Branch? Motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second? Second. We have a second by Commissioner Booth. Is there any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Did you bring the deed, or was that something you'll be?
Jenny has the deed. I have a plat here.
All right. Do you have it with you, or do we? Okay. All right. We'll take care of getting it done and get a copy back to you
Okay.
Tomorrow, and we greatly appreciate it. Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you all for your time.
You're always welcome, and any other projects that you have you need our help on, we'll be happy to help.
Absolutely, and I appreciate everything that you all do to keep your roads and working with us as you do.
All right. Thank you very much, Mary. We're going to move around on the agenda a little bit. The next matter is, I'm going to jump around just a little bit. Is Miss Sherry McCoy here? Sherry, I know you signed up for Publix about a road problem that you're having. While we're working through this agenda, because public comment's way at the end, I don't want to leave you here. I'm going to have Mr. Little, the road supervisor. I don't know if you've talked to him yet? Okay. We'll get you in here just as soon as we can, but if you would step back in the back and talk to him and see where we are on that, and maybe at a break he can update us on it, but we'll have you come up. I just didn't want to leave you sitting here for 2 or 3 hours because we've got a long agenda, and we'll try to move that up a little bit for you, okay? I tell you what, let's just do this. Rather than leaving somebody sitting here, would you like to come on up and have a seat and address that issue? Okay, come on up. You can have a seat real quick. I thought you probably did, and I didn't want to have to leave you. Just have a seat at either place. You're the only person that signed up, and we don't want to leave you sitting here for.
Well, and it was actually kind of a last-minute thing also.
Let's do one thing first, because Miss Little the clerk has to take down everything. Would you tell us your name and where you live?
Okay, Sherry McCoy, and I live at 82 Johnson Heights, Raccoon Creek, here in Pike County. And in October of '09, the people that lived on that Johnson Heights area, we all signed a paper asking that the county take that road, adopt it, and they agreed. At no point was we ever towed 425 feet, never. From October of '09 up until about 3.5 years ago, county came out my driveway, which is not my driveway, I travel it, I don't own it. And they gravelled it, they salted it, they went on up the main mountain on up to 2 other neighbors' homes. They rerouted the water, put in drains, gravelled it, salted it for years. When they paved that hill, they paved about 500 feet, and they came out the driveway that I travel about 25, 50 feet. I never measured it. They came out my driveway. Whenever it snowed, those trucks, salt trucks, would come out that driveway. My driveway was so wide, you literally could turn. And they would come out there and sit, and I don't know what they did. And they left their sprayer on, the salt, and whenever they would leave, there was mounds of salt, mounds of it, waist deep of salt. And there's different people on that mountain that's not related to me, just people that lives on the mountain will tell you, we all got that salt in buckets and used it. They used it.
What year would this have been?
That was probably in 2012, 2013, something like that, 2014. Okay, we used that salt. You drive out my driveway and there was hundreds of pounds of salt. Come spring, everything on that road was dead. And this is what I can't get anybody to understand. Everything died right there at that certain area of that driveway. Everything died. The trees died, the grass died, everything died. The trees started falling over the hill. And what did happen? It pulled my driveway over just that one section, nowhere else. The driveway I travel is about 2/10 of a mile long. Nowhere else on that driveway is hurt, damaged, anything. Just right there where they put that salt. So about 3.5 years ago, I start contacting Jackie Darrell Smith. And he says, okay, we're going to come out and look at it. We're going to come out and look at it. They never did. When they come out, they dumped a big load of gravels on top of that pavement that was eat up and corroded by the salt. It started pushing the road down. pushing the road down. Before you knew it, we couldn't even travel it. Couldn't even go across it. Hit swag 10, 15 foot at one time. Coming out to work one morning, road swagged. Trees leaning over the hill. Okay, we couldn't travel that road. And at that time, I was married. My husband went above that, and he cut the side of the hill to where we could go around it. And that's what I'm doing right now, is I travel a road. There's nobody in here would travel. Nobody in here would travel that road.
So, you know, all the four of us are coming to this, you know, years after the damage was done. We'll talk to the road supervisor. I don't know if there's anything legally we can do, because, I mean, we can't go back and try to address something that happened in 2012 or 13, but we'll talk to him and see legally, this court cannot do work on private property. It won't unless we have clear proof that the county did, you know, county workers did damage, and I'm not sure how we would ever prove that.
Well, I came over here last year several times, and I spoke with Herbie Deskins a lot. And Herbie was in the mind or state of mind of hire you an attorney and let 12 jurors figure this out. But, you know, no one intentionally, I wouldn't think, damaged that road. I didn't. I travel it. And I have asked Fabian Little, he came out to the house and looked at it, and he says, you know, it is above the 425 feet that the county said they adopted. And I understand you can't go on a person's private property, and I'm not asking anybody to come out to my house and do anything, any work, because when they come up and rerouted the water, they put drains in. I now own a pond in my backyard.
Yeah,
I've never said a word.
We've had a problem, this court's had a problem where we found roads that have been maintained that were never adopted into the system.
Well, they maintained it. They came out my driveway for years. They put down gravel. I mean, I never even had to ask them. They salted it.
You know, the county also took care of cemetery roads and things like that that are clearly illegal for years and years and years. And what this court's taken the approach that we're going to follow the law to the letter. And if the ordinance that says that it was only 425 feet, you know, just because other courts may have, I don't want to use the word broken the law, but may have erred, this court, if it's not been adopted in, this court has taken the approach that by law, every one of us, like I said, you know, as an attorney, I have an ethical duty to follow the law. And if it's not in the ordinance, just because a prior administration may have worked on it or done something, we can't do anything. Now, if there's something that we can do on a portion that has been adopted in, or if there's a portion that should be adopted in, I'll get with the road supervisor. But there's really, I don't see how this court, and if any of the commissioners would like to chime in, I don't see how we can go back and rectify something on private property that may have taken place in 2012 or 2013.
I had spoke with an attorney last year, and he says, you know, how long did they maintain the road? They maintained the road from 2009 to 2018, when I came here and said, hey, you all damaged my road, when I brought it in front of everybody, including Jackie Earl Smith.
What year did the damage take place?
It started around 2013, 2014, when the trees started dying and the road started swagging. They continued to salt that road. They continued to gravel that road.
We'll talk to Mr. Little, but I'm not sure. Look, if there's a way we could help you and do it legally, we will do our best. But if it's on private property, or if it's on a portion of the road that's not been adopted into the county road system, just because a prior court or courts allowed work to be done that shouldn't have been done, then you know, there's very little we can do about that. But again, I'll speak to him and see. I really don't know what to tell you, and I can't give you legal advice. But you know, if you have an attorney, we could get him in touch with Mr. Keene and see, you know, see if there's a solution to it.
Yeah, no, I had spoke to different attorneys, but I'd spoke to one that says, he said, I had a case very similar to this where they adopted a road, accidentally paved a little bit, maintained it throughout the years, and when the clients that lived down that street said, hey, there's potholes and chug holes, we need it repaired, they refused. He said, you need to speak to somebody. Go back over and speak with Ray Jones and say, hey, they maintained this road for 9 years.
A lot of people have that response, call Ray. I hear that quite frequently. If there's a way, let me talk to Mr. Little. I just don't know what we can do, okay? I mean, we're coming, this court's only been in office since January 7th.
I know, and I really hated to come this early. I'm sure you've got a lot of things that's a lot bigger than just a road. But there's days I can't get to my house.
Yeah, I just
Sherry,
don't.
Fabian and I came over there and looked at one day.
Yeah.
Did you try to reach out to the abandoned mines?
I did, and it has nothing to do with I did, I sure did. I called them like 3 times, and they came out, actually, the first time I called them, they came out and made a report. And they said that was not a failure of anything other than when they come out there and they put the weight of the pavement on it, and then they salted it. And then, you can see, I had pictures, I brought pictures over of the trees that when the trees died and they started leaning over the hill, it pulled the road, it pulled the embankment with it. And I did.
Well, they did mine up there, so it looks like to me that, I'm not a professional in this, but it looks like to me that they've pushed that dirt out on that cliff previously, years before you probably even moved over there. I don't know.
Oh, no, that's me hiring somebody bringing, every time my road falls, like I may come out to work today, or this morning, and if it's rained, my road will sit down about a foot, and I can't get out the driveway. So then I have to hire somebody to bring a load of sand, creek, and gravel, put on it to build it up. So that's.
Well, it's a good sign that water's trapped in.
I had an engineer to come out and look at it, and there was no water. There was no water in the ditch. There was no water over the hill. I had an engineer from NatCo come out and look at it.
Okay.
And I've talked to different people, and like I said, I'm not asking for anybody. I wouldn't come out here and ask anybody to come over and repair something that was mine or something I'd done. This would have never happened if they hadn't come out there 2 or 3 trips, left those salt things running, and if so much salt was there, it ate up that pavement. It ate up the ground. It killed everything there.
Okay. We'll get with Fabian here and see if we can come up with some kind of answer for it. We'll try to help you, if we can.
And it's only right there at that one section, because like I said, my driveway that I traveled to get to the land I own is 0.2 of a mile long, and 25 feet of that road, right there where they would pull out there and salt, right there is the problem.
Okay.
How far above?
What they measured and draw the line is exactly at my old driveway. It says 425, and then.
How far above 425 was the problem at?
Right at the 425, right the very inch, right at 425. But then they paved it another 101 feet, and then they paved it 25, 50 feet out my driveway. They measured it that it was 101 extra feet, but my driveway's gone, so I don't know how much pavement was there.
Driveway was down below that ridge.
Yeah, it's down below it. Pardon? No, never thought nothing of it. No one thought nothing of it. Neighbors, everybody will tell you that, there was mounds where those trucks would sit there. It was waist high. We just went out and got it and spread it. Neighbor took some up the hill.
Sherry, let's do this. We've probably 3 more hours worth of work tonight. And if this Corps is committed to customer service, whether it's solid waste, roads, if there's a way that we can do this legally and find a way to help you, we will. I'm not sure that we can, and it's really hard for us to make sure, you know, if damage was done in 2013, 14, 15, and there was proof of that, and it was brought to the court then they should have fixed it. But now we're trying to go back and, you know, 4, 5, 6 years later to try to figure out exactly what happened. We have to err on the side of making sure that we are following the law.
Yeah, I
And you know, like I said, we've cleaned up a lot of messes. We're trying to clean up more messes that you're going to hear about if you stay around. But I'll get with Mr. Little and Commissioner Robertson, and I'll have Mr. Little get with you before the end of the week. And if we can help you, we'll tell you. If we can't, we'll be really straight up with you and tell you we can't, okay? And if we can't help you, it's not because that we don't want to. There's a lot of people who have issues that are, you know, questionable about whether we can do it or not. And, you know, we have taken an approach that we're going to err on the side of, you know, following the law, because we don't want to end up in a situation like the court has previously.
Yeah, I wouldn't ask any, you know, I wouldn't come and ask anything of private property.
I know that. And I'm not doubting everything. I have no reason to doubt what you're saying is truthful. We just have to have proof before we can make a legal determination to work on private property on those circumstances. So let me get with Mr. Little, and I'll have him get with you. Mr. Little, I want you to we need a definitive answer for her before the end of the week, if we can do that.
Oh, good.
What, if you don't mind, don't do it out here in public.
I know, because even when I give you my address, I have people come to my house.
Okay.
Even when I give my address, because people watch these physical.
And do me a favor, also give it to our secretary in case we have a question, and we, you know, Commissioner Robertson may have a question, but that way we have a way to communicate. And but I've instructed Mr. Little to get with you before the end of the week. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for coming. Anytime we can help, let us know. Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to jump around. I'm going to ask Mr. Tom Ramsey from Geosyntec Consultants to come forward. We have a matter involving the expansion of the Pike County landfill. And we're going to be passing over some of this stuff. I think some of the stuff that road namings and things like that, just to try to speed this meeting up. It's a pretty long agenda. Mr. Ramsey, the floor is yours. Please feel free to proceed.
Thank you. I just wanted to, we've got a little presentation that's getting started here, but I'll jump in ahead of it just for the sake of time. As an update for the work that we've been doing for the county, we performed a survey that's required by the state every year to determine the remaining disposal capacity that's built out in the landfill right now. Based on that capacity, you've got about 3.5 years by our estimation of remaining space to put waste in the existing constructed landfill.
Could you say that we have 3.5 years of space for garbage in our landfill as of right now?
Correct, 3.5 years. So that's going to run to about fall of 2022 is what our estimation is. Now I'm trying to give you an accurate but conservative number. I don't want to be Mr. Optimistic and say everything is lovely. So there's a chance that there's a little bit more than that, but that's going to depend on how compaction goes moving forward and how much waste is received over the next few years. But I think you can count on 3.5 years of remaining disposal space. Can I go to the next slide, if that's available? Just for folks to follow along. So, and the site took about 60,000 tons in the last 12 months. So that was that slide. We can move on to the next one. So here we are with 3.5 years of remaining space in the landfill, and we've got to do something next. So we've made a recommendation for a landfill expansion on the existing site, and I'll get into just a bit more detail on that in the next slide. I cannot urge you with enough emphasis on the importance of a landfill expansion for Pike County. I think it's in the fiscal, there'll be very difficult financial times if that landfill is not expanded. for several reasons. First, and I apologize for running over some ground that folks may already know about, but from prior work that we've done in trying to help with establish the rates in the last few months, it's come clear from, as we've gotten our picture of the current financial condition of the solid waste system, the county right now has about $3.5 million accrued for closure and post-closure liabilities for the landfill. That's about half, in my opinion, of about what you need, so there's about $3.5 million to go on that. And if the landfill is allowed to be exhausted and then has to be closed, you're looking at now being $3.5 million short, roughly, for that responsibility, and then you would have to build a transfer station on a different piece of property in order to take waste out of county. You're looking at another few $1 million for that. And then you're talking about an ongoing expense from that point on having to take your waste and transfer it to another facility, private landfill facility that's going to make a profit on that waste several counties away. So you're talking about many millions of dollars of financial impacts to the county if you allow that landfill to close. So I can't urge you enough that we need to move forward on an expansion for that site.
And that was the purpose that we passed the rate increase, because if it shuts down, you're talking that the county's going to need to come up with $3.5 million in additional funds approximately to close it, because there's not enough money in the escrow account to close it.
Correct. You're looking at the rate increase plus another increase in a few years that's substantial in order to pay for those extra costs.
And that would have to come right out of the county's. If we shut down our solid waste system, the county's still on the hook for $3.5 million in addition to what's in the bank to shut down solid waste.
Correct. As we had done our review before, as we pointed out, there's no set of funds that have been set aside for future construction, have not been set aside for closure. The money that's there right now is basically enough to cover the post-closure obligation of the landfill. So you've got to pay for the closure, you've got to pay for the construction of future facilities to manage that waste.
So hopefully we're past that with the rate increase.
Yes.
But I think you told me earlier today that if for some reason it would be, I think the word you said, catastrophic financially for the county, it'd be about a $10 million hit if we shut down the landfill.
Yeah, I'm trying to not be dramatic, but yes, it's major, many millions of dollars that will be an impact to the county.
Go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting your presentation.
That was a little sidebar because I think it's important to set aside what's going on the plan forward. So here we are at this current date, and I see that we've got three options moving forward with the landfill expansion as an assumption moving forward. In order to permit the landfill expansion, that's a multi-year process. It's something that's going to take several years, perhaps up as many as 4. So here we are with 3.5 years remaining in the existing landfill. And we've got several options to do. One is, as we move forward with the expansion, we may need to build a small piece of Phase 6, which is already permitted on the landfill. As I mentioned, it's about $1 to $2 million. That would buy enough time in order to tide the county over until the expansion is fully permitted and ready to be constructed. Another option is that the current permit for the site has, when we finish Phase 5, the grades are quite flat on it, and there's an opportunity to potentially mound the waste higher, so we don't have to do any construction at all. So that's a no-cost option other than putting together a little permit application for that. But we have to do some calculations in order to show that that will be stable. So I don't know that that's a real option at this point, but it's something to be considered in the next few months. And then the final option is to essentially push as hard as you can on the expansion and try to get it permitted. I mean, and not do any construction and hope that we get the permit in time in order to build the first phase of the expansion. I would not recommend that, just based on there are many things outside of our control, namely the Department of Environmental Protection's review that has to go on for that expansion. But I put that out there because it is an option that's available.
And I think before we can re-permit the site to try to expand it, to get another 50 years or so out of it, that we have to amend our solid waste management plan.
Yes.
Because it was never included in that plan to try to expand or re-permit the landfill. Correct.
And if we go to the next slide, I'll just go through what the, this is a very quick slide that just shows a concept that we had come up with early on We're talking about just the existing landfills in a hollow in near Fort Branch, and we're just talking about expanding it around the edges and building a large berm at the bottom in order to get this space. So it's not a very large expansion, frankly, that's going to get a very substantial amount of disposal space moving forward. So from that end, it'll be economical, which again goes back to the whole point of can't urge enough the importance of getting an expansion for the fiscal health of Pike County in the long term with regard to your solid waste system. Next slide, please. So essentially, as we move forward on the expansion, I've got 4 steps before you move on to construction of the next phase of the landfill. And the first piece of it is this county solid waste plan. The last time the solid waste management plan, it was updated in 2018, so that was only a year ago. But within that plan, there was stated, there's a section that's required by the state where you're to describe any proposed new disposal facilities or expansion of existing ones. And the statement was that no new facilities are planned during the 5-year period. And this is even though in this document itself, the landfill was expected to have less than 10 years of remaining space. So that was a surprise to me. So we need to modify your solid waste plan and resubmit that to the state in order to document. It's essentially the first piece that lets the state know that the county is formally entertaining an expansion. That's a fairly quick piece that can be done in about a month. It's not a huge amount of effort, as we'll talk a little bit further on. Second is then the formal application with the state of Kentucky or the Commonwealth of Kentucky is 3 steps. There's a notice of intent to permit. That's essentially the official notice to the state that lets them know that there's a major expansion coming, and it also defines what happens in the next piece of work. The administrative application, which involves doing site investigations in order to understand what's going on around the landfill, the things that we need to design around, and then you prepare a preliminary design that's submitted with it. And then finally, the technical application, which is a very detailed design with lots of calculations, lots of plan sheets, et cetera. Very, very deep engineering involved with that. I've got a rough time frame on this slide of the time that's going to be taken. So as you can see from this, we're talking about realistically, at best, having the permit and the construction of the first cell coming online just as the existing disposal space runs out. So that's why I go back to my original recommendation that I think we need to have a plan B, which is to consider either mounting the waste higher, not spending any money, or consider doing a small piece of phase 6 to tide us over, because you just cannot afford to run out of space and just shut the door for 5 months while you're waiting, for the new landfill cell to come online. So that's essentially the sequence that's going on. As you can see from this, we have submitted a proposal to the county that would cover the first 3 phases: the change to the solid waste plan, the notice of intent to permit, and the administrative application. Those 3 pieces I can define fairly well right now. The last piece, which is the technical application, the final scope for that is going to depend a lot on the results we get from the prior work. So I can't really give you a good hard estimate on that. And we had submitted that to the fiscal court for their consideration. The total for those first 3 in our proposal is about $221,000. A lot of money, but you got to realize the scope of this. We're going to have documents that are being submitted to the state that are probably, when they're done, probably 8 or 10 inches thick with lots of detail that goes behind it. With regard to financial planning, with regard to this, I would make a recommendation. We had split our proposal up into different phases based on the different work. The first piece, which is just the change of the county solid waste plan, is a little piece of work that would take place in this fiscal year. And that's only about $5,900. There's a little bit of work with that. And if I may ask, or may request, that we might have approval for that piece of the work so that we can get started on it right now to get this process rolling.
So that's $5,900 to change the solid waste plan.
Correct.
And then the notice of intent to permit that we'll need to do in the first half of the next fiscal year would be how much?
In our proposal, the first half for the notice of intent to permit and the administrative application, both of those together would take place in the next fiscal year, the 2019-2020 fiscal year. We've got, the way our proposal's broken up, it would, for the notice of intent would be something a little bit more than $30,000. I've got some project management fees that would have to go into that as well. I can rejig it.
$30,853.
Right, but there's a little bit of the project management under task 4 would go under that as well, because that's where I put a number of meetings with the state, and I can refigure that if there's a desire for the court to have me redo that. So we can certainly approve this in pieces as we need to, but certainly from a budgetary planning standpoint for the next fiscal year, you're looking at the remainder of that, which is roughly $217,000. If we need to split that into pieces, I can revise our proposal and resubmit it for consideration in July.
It would help that may be something that we would request on a cash flow situation rather than having to pay that kind of money at one time.
I understand.
I know this is a lot of money. It sounds like a lot of money to have to re-permit this landfill. What do you think the re-permitting and the reconfiguration of the landfill, would that be done in phases over time? You wouldn't be doing the whole thing at one time, correct?
We would go for the permit for the entire expansion
But the
at once.
construction
Oh, the construction would take place in pieces, yes. There'd be many phases over the next 40 years, where it would just be, you would build pieces that would give you 3 or 4 years of disposal space at a time, and then a few years later build the next, so you'd build them about 4-year chunks at a time.
And the four of us have pretty much, we've resolved ourselves to not kick the can down the road, for lack of a better term, to fix this issue for future generations of Pike Countyans, so that somebody's not back here in 10 years or 15 years wondering what they're going to do with their garbage.
Correct.
So I think you had earlier said that if we re-permit the landfill, even at 80,000 tons a year, we could we would have up to 50 years on the same site.
Correct.
In terms of building a whole new landfill, trying to find the property, permitting a new landfill, constructing it, what's the difference in cost to re-permit this one, do it in phases versus an entirely new landfill?
It would be on the order of 3 to 5 times more expensive for the total cost.
To build a new landfill?
Because you're talking about buying property, you're talking about buying several hundred acres of property, having to rebuild roads, administrative facilities, you bring in utilities, everything from beginning. And then remember, you've already got a very large amount of data on the existing landfill, so I only have to get a little bit more data in order to get the expansion of this. If we start with a brand new site, you start with brand new everything as far as the Department of Environmental Protection is concerned. So there's 10 times more investigation and data that has to be collected.
It would seem to me that the state would be, and we've met with the state. You came down from Maryland. We met with the state. I think we had 6 regulators, and they were very pleased with the progress that's been made, and I think they were very happy with the job that Mr. Hensley, our landfill manager's done. And how would you characterize, when you came in and started looking at the landfill, looking at the finances of solid waste, and I was kidding you yesterday when we met that, you were an Ivy League educated expert on solid waste. So not too many of those out there.
Yeah, no, there are not many. I'm the snowflake, I guess, in the crowd. I mean, when I came out and was first asked to be involved and take a review of what was going on, we had a facility which was having to deal with a number of violations that had just been issued in 2018 regarding the poor operations of the landfill, struggling to operate the cover and manage the leachate, the liquids that come through the landfill, manage the leachate properly. And then as we dug into the finances, I mentioned before, we had a financial situation where the landfill was having to take money from the general fund, or the solid waste system as a whole was having to take money from the general fund, so it was not paying for itself. Old equipment, broken down trucks, old equipment, I mean, a lot of work that need to be done, and I do give credit in a very short period of time. Objectively, you can just see how the review of the inspectors from the Department of Environmental Protection has changed in the last 3 months. They were coming out frequently. There were notices of violations coming out every 4 months. I remember being here in January when the former commissioner was here before you, and he spent an hour and a half going through all the violations and what was going on. That has not occurred since then. So things are definitely on the right course, on the right path, in my opinion. Solid waste systems don't change overnight. It takes a long time to sort of change the ship of state and get it turn course. So you're not where you want to be, but you're on the right path and going where you want to be. So I am personally am pleased to see that and very encouraged for where things are going.
And we appreciate the attention to detail that Geosyntec has paid to some of these issues. Are there any questions for me, the commissioners? Mr. Ramsey, do you have anything else that you would?
I think I think we have a very high probability of getting the permit. Where in my professional experience, the thing that stops landfill permits more than anything else are lack of political will to permit the landfill. Where they don't get the zoning that's necessary, the solid waste management plan doesn't get changed. Those are the decisions by the fiscal court are what make or break those landfills. If it goes purely to technical issues, so it's in my court, we'll find a way to work around it.
I'll say this, Commissioner, when we met with I think Commissioner Booth was there in that meeting, and not want to speak for him, but I think it's fair to say that they saw no reason why we couldn't re-permit the site. And as if you recall, when we first came in, we had been told you couldn't do that.
They was on board altogether.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were pleased with who we hired, yeah.
I think that they were very pleased, and the comment was made that they were very pleased to see Geosyntec working and the work that was being done. And they were also very appreciative of the work that Mr. Hensley, Larry, had done over on the landfill. I mean, I think our leachate is down. We're keeping the water off of it, and so I think we're making progress.
I agree.
Is there a motion to authorize the payment to $5,901 to Geosyntec Consultants to revise the solid waste plan so that we can move forward with the re-permitting of the Pike County landfill? We have a motion by Commissioner Robertson. Is there a second? Second. We have a second by Commissioner Booth. Is there any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. Mr. Ramsey, if you would, please just keep us updated on the revised solid waste plan. I'm sure we'll be getting a copy of that when it's completed. And then let us know when we need to move forward with the notice of intent to permit the expansion of the landfill.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming down. Have a safe trip home.
All right. Thank you.
We have another very special guest. We have Elkhorn City Mayor Mike Taylor here, and he is accompanied by our friend David Sanders. I think you're here on a matter we're going to move around. We have a resolution. Mayor, would you like to come up with Mr. Sanders to discuss the resolution that we have on the agenda authorizing the filing of an LGEDF House Bill 200 project grant application in the amount of $145,409 to complete a sanitary sewer evaluation report and complete the jetting and identification of the remaining sewer collection system and approval to execute all related documents. That's on the agenda. And also, Mr. Aarc Ratliff, project administrator, developer for the Big Sandy ad, and Ms. Sharon Hall. Would you also please come up for us? David, would you like to proceed with this?
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate the opportunity for the city to be able to address the court with regards to a project that is really very dear to the city and to the county. As you're well aware that there are 3 landfills along US 460. There's a landfill at John Moore's Branch, there's a landfill at Stone Cove, and there's a landfill at Wolf Pen, different from the one at Wolf Pit that you already talked about, but there is one at Wolf Pen. All 3 of those landfills are in the Elkhorn City utility district. We recognized that some time ago and have been working probably with the mayor lead for 6 or 8 years, trying to prepare the infrastructure to utilize those landfills. We diligently worked to replace our existing wastewater plant to be able to receive additional usage through industrial activities at any of those landfills. And Judge, you're aware that I've actively lobbied on behalf of the city and the county for the completion of 460 and for the deeding of John Moore's Branch to the county. A part of that is to be able to, oh, by the way, the wastewater treatment plant is now 100% complete at a budget of $3.375 million, of which the city was fortunate enough to be able to get grants and KIA loans, and the court was willing to assist in that with some co-severance funds to complete that. We found ourselves now at another crossroad to maintain our utility district as a viable utility district. We have an agreed order to address the existing lines and transport of within the city. Many of those lines were constructed in the 1950s. A lot of them have breaks in them. There's a lot of manholes that have been filled in and uncovered. And we undertook last year of trying to address this issue. We have diligently provided the information to the folks at Solid Waste in Frankfurt. We just got approval for the sewer system evaluation system to be able to address modifications of our system. Unfortunately, a budget that comes along with the needed modifications is $1.7 million. And the city is going to have to undertake that issue. And a part of that issue is the request that we have here. I need to back up a little bit and tell you that I'm a volunteer for the city, and as such, I'm not always available to direct some of the things that we do. And I'm going to address something here, and I apologize to Aarc that he didn't understand this. The city needs this initial funds. One is to address the engineering and evaluation costs that got us to this point. That's the $45,000. But the additional $100,000, we had hoped that it would have been $200,000, but $100,000 is fine. The first thing we will need to do is to reprogram that funds to make it as matching funds for other grants that we need in order to address our issue. As I've told you before, we got $1.7 million that we're going to need. Now, Aarc and I have had some discussions about that, about approaching Cdbg, approaching Aarc, approaching RD, approaching KIA, and through the packaging of all these together, if we have some local funds, co-severance funds, it will make it a lot better in processing those grant applications. During the years that I worked on the funding for the wastewater treatment plant, the one question that I got asked more often than anything else is, where is your local funding in this project? And we had no co-severance in that. The last money that we got was a co-severance that came from the fiscal court. And I was very gracious for that, and I think the court was very aware of the matching that we needed to do that, and it was granted. And it helped us complete the project. We couldn't have done it without it. So in approaching this project, I think we need a commitment of co-severance funds on the front end to show that whenever we approach Aarc, and they know that we're going to have to come with a 25% match, that we're going to be able to say that, well, we've got the match committed. And I'll have to tell you, if you award this co-severance, there will be a time that I'll come back to this court and ask for more money, because I don't think $100,000 of match funds would be adequate for a $1.7 million project. I do think we may need some more, but we'll know more down the road as we start approaching these funding agencies and we go through the process to do that. So with the approval from the Division of Waste Management at this point, we're ready to, in their mind, we'd be ready to go to construction to do the mitigation. But the only problem is we need the funding in order to do the construction, and we don't have any of the funding together yet. This work that we're saying that we could do with the camera work, the identifying of the inflow and infiltrations, a lot of that can continue on, because at this point, even though they can't commit to us, Kentucky Rural Water has been providing resources to us to be able to do that. And we've gotten probably half of the city has already been evaluated with regards and mapped and detailed with regards to where we are right now. So with that, I guess I would leave it for questions, but I would also tell you that in my own views, I would like to look at reprogramming the additional funds as match funds for the construction of the mitigation that we have on that.
Is there an agreed order right now with,
Pardon?
is the city in an agreed order right now?
Yes.
With
This work was done.
Division of Water?
With Division of Water. It was part of the violations that occurred with the old wastewater treatment plant and the delivery system of getting all of the, we have, the city has a very small footprint, but we have 7 lift stations in the city, because anybody that's aware of the city, between Elkhorn Creek and the Russell Fork and the Leviathan Fork of the Russell Fork, the city is in a Y. So we've got 3 distinct parts of the city, and we're constantly moving wastewater from one side to the other, and it creates a lot more lift stations than what would normally be utilized in a system the size of Elkhorn City. But nonetheless, we've got to deal with it.
Does the fact that there's an agreed order give Elkhorn any kind of priority for state funding, either through KIA or rural, or I guess rural water wouldn't, but KIA or any other state programs?
I'm sorry, Judge. I don't hear very well.
That's what, David, I understand.
am old, but and I can't help it.
It has helped us, like with our wastewater plant, That's what helped us with that on an agreed order. It put us up in the numbers, you know, like higher in the numbers, and it helped us a lot with that. And this agreed order was here a long time before I ever became mayor. I just wanted to make that clear.
I was going to talk to you about
Long
that.
time.
Mayor, you were you inherited a situation that's sort of similar to what we did. How did Elkhorn get in this situation with its wastewater? Was it just neglected, not inadequate funding, no cash reserves?
No, none.
Was there any, did you even have any kind of reserve account for depreciation or anything when it was?
No. We have now, because we had we done the same thing you had to do with solid waste. We had to raise our bills on that, so.
So you need 45,000 for the sanitary sewer evaluation report and 100,000 for jetting to identify other issues in the lines. Is that correct?
But again, Judge, it would be my recommendation that we not do or expend that money on the camera work and the jetting of the system, because there's a higher use for that money, and that would be matching funds. The sewer system, by the way, to follow up with the mayor, is on solid financial grounds. We were able to function. We're in a positive cash flow. We don't have any real issues operational. We do have an issue with that we have an old system that's got a lot of miles on it that needs a lot of updates, and that's what we're faced with.
One of the things that so basically you don't want us to authorize the 100,000 now. You want to wait to see if you can get matching funds for that. Is that correct? Or do you want us to authorize it to be drawn down only to match other grant?
My own preference would be that you would authorize it for match. I believe the letter that we sent to the representatives indicated that was where we were going with this, and then somewhere between that request and Big Sandy Ad, and Big Sandy Ad has done a fantastic job. I don't have any issues. I just wasn't available to meet with Aarc whenever he was trying to do this, and some wires got crossed with regards to the request and all. But in approaching these funding agencies, the question is where is your commitment on local funds? Where's your commitment for co-severance? Are you out here trying to do this on an island, or has everyone else bought into it with you? In my mind, and I really understand how co-severance works, Judge, and I apologize for that, but we really won't be doing any expenditures of it during this fiscal year, or it will be at least 12 months away from being able to get to the point of trying to expend funds.
So the first thing you have to do is you have to do the evaluation. So that way you're going to know what your needs are. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Aarc, is there anything you'd like to add on this?
Well, Judge, when I met with the mayor and engineer from Summit Engineering, Andrew, and excuse me, his last name escapes me, but when we sat down and discussed the project, they had executed a engineering contract with Summit Engineering for just a little bit over $72,000, and they expended out of their general fund approximately $27,000 towards that. And there's about 60% of the existing sanitary sewer system that had been jetted and cambered, and they were needing additional funds to go ahead and do the last 40%. The issue was that they were using volunteers, another company, and to come up and just try to jet the system out so they could camera to find out where their problems were, where inflow and infiltration were coming in, but they were kind of having to do that on a case by case. When they ever got a chance, they would come up and do it. So I had contacted Kentucky Rural Water and spoke to Tim Blanton, the person that had been doing the camera work, and he informed me that, that there was 40% left, and it would cost around $100,000 to go ahead and finish jetting the system, using high-pressure water to clean out the lines in order to get a camera through it to see where the problems were. And his estimation was it was going to cost about $100,000. So that was the reason for the request, $45,000 some odd dollars to finish up, paying Summit Engineering to get the to do the engineering work, and then have some contract with someone to come in and finish jetting the system so they could go ahead and camera it and determine how much had to be replaced and get a cost estimate together. So that's where that number came from. In order to get that stuff, information done, then you can put together a cost estimate to see what repairs are going to be made, and then you can go and apply to Cdbg, Aarc, KIA, all those other, funding sources. But you need to know what your costs are going to be in order to know how much you're going to apply for. So with 40% of the system still not cameraed or inspected, you don't know exactly how much money you're going to need down the road in order to fix the system.
I think Judge Hickman has a question.
Sure.
Is not the jetting and the cleaning of that line in the camera needed to solve the agreed order?
Well, yeah, in order to complete the report that they have to have in by December of 2019, to have that SSES, the Sanitary Sewer Evaluation Study, done, you'd have to do that work, the cameraing, the jetting, in order to finalize the report to send it to Division of Water within that time frame.
Right. I mean, and is that not the prime goal right here, is to solve the agreed order?
That was my understanding. That was my understanding to get the report done and get that report into Division of Water before the deadline.
Is $45,000 a lot for a report like that? I mean, I don't.
Well, the original, Judge, the work had began and was, approximately some 60% into it before I came on board and started working with the mayor and Summit Engineering. That was a contract amount that was agreed upon by the city and Summit Engineering. It was $72,000 to complete the report.
So part of it's
When
been,
it became evident to us that the agreed order was there, and maybe we should have known it, this was like October, and we had a November deadline date for submitting a storm sewer evaluation plan. Now, Eric and I are not totally in disagreement with one another. I just see the stormwater evaluation plan based upon the email that I just received this morning that said that Division of Water is okay with our plan, that they've approved the plan. Now, he seems to think that the jetting needs to be finished beforehand.
Well, that's according to the representative of Kentucky Rural Water. That needs to be done in order for them to finish up the camera work.
Oh, yeah, and it does need to be finished. There's absolutely no question it needs to be finished. I'm just saying that we need to start looking at, if we satisfied the terms of the agreed order, as you just mentioned, now we need to look at how are we going to get the funding necessary to address the issues. And we clearly know what many of the issues are.
Mayor, what you tell me, what does the city do? Because, this court is committed to helping to see Elkhorn develop. It's got
I feel that, for the matching fund, like David said right there, because what they've already found is lines broke down, they're broke, the water's running into the lines. I mean, it's covering our wastewater plant now, which will hold it, but we don't want to have to treat that, what's coming into it, whatever they call it. But what I'm saying to you is that they found lines that's already broke with all the camera work they've done right now, which we've been blessed with people to come and volunteer to do that. Even from Prestonsburg, the mayor sent somebody up. Jenkins has sent somebody here.
How much local funds have been spent on this project? Ratepayer funds, do you know?
About $25,000, I think, of local funds. No? Yeah. Is this it?
It's almost
What he
27,000.
said is 26,779.
On the entire project. One of the things that I just want to just discuss briefly, not just about this project, but there's 2 or 3 others that are on the agenda. And we're doing everything we can. Ms. Hall in my office is always, Mayor, at your disposal to try to help on any grant applications that the city of Elkhorn needs to submit. She formerly was employed by the Big Sandy Ad District, and she's doing a great job for us. We're trying to make sure that we find every source of money that we can use the coal severance tax to match as well. But our coal severance tax, the county, we're only budgeting $1 million in LGEAF money for next year, which is down $500,000 below the current budget. The current court budgeted, I think, 1.7 million, I think, in that range, and we're looking to be about 500,000 short.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much longer we're even going to have a viable source of coal severance tax. The amount of money that's coming in the formula, Dave, that we've used in Frankfurt for years and years and years has been changed because so much, there's been such a decline in Eastern Kentucky and coal production, Western Kentucky as well. We need to make sure that we help Elkhorn City. My concern, not just for Elkhorn, but every other project that we've historically funded with coal severance tax, is that source of revenue is rapidly depleting. And I'm not sure, again, how much longer we're even going to have a viable source of coal severance tax or a stream of coal severance tax that's going to allow us to do any significant projects. Do the members of the court have any questions or discussion on this issue?
We've been about a month, 2 months, something like that.
It's
Varies.
a little over a month that it's been operational, and Judge, I realize the need to utilize fully the coal severance funds, but I also realize that if we're going to develop the industrial facilities at John Moore's branch, then the city's wastewater treatment system needs to be up and functioning 100%. And, that's the only goal that we have, is to be sure that it is, so that if we're able to utilize that property at some point in the future, that we'll have the infrastructure in place to be able to do it. And I think it's, to me, it is it's a need.
Okay, so Elkhorn needs a 45,409 to complete the sanitary sewer evaluation report.
Yes.
And $100,000 to be used only as matching funds for other grants or loans.
That's what our plans are.
Is there a motion to adopt a resolution of the Pike County Fiscal Court authorizing the filing of a Kentucky Department of Local Government Economic Development Fund House Bill 200 project proposal / grant application in the amount of $45,409 in local government economic development single county funds to complete a sanitary sewer evaluation report, and an additional $100,000 to be used only as matching funds for other grants and or loans to be used for the Elkhorn City sanitary sewer project.
I make a motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second? We have a second by Commissioner Booth. Is there any other question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. Gentlemen, we'll process the appropriate paperwork.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Judge.
Mayor, we appreciate everything you're doing to try to turn Elkhorn City around.
Thank you
very much. The next item on the agenda, we're going to go back to the Mountain Water District update, which I think is, for the members of the court, was item number 4 on the agenda. And I have Mr. Roy Sawyers, the district manager, and Mr. Mike Spears, who is the accountant for the water district. Gentlemen, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and what we've asked you to do here for us this evening. Mr. Sawyers, the floor is yours.
Roy Sawyers, Mountain Water District, District's General Manager.
Mike Spears, I'm CPA for the district and have been for quite some time.
Gentlemen, I've asked you to come down today to give us an update, something I had hoped that we could do before now, and talk a little bit about the progress where Mountain Water is. And I had a lot of questions. As you know, there's been a lot of controversy with Mountain Water over the years, and I appreciate the work that you've done, Roy. I think you've done an exemplary job, even when there's been political crossfire going among different factions. The first thing that on the agenda that you've prepared for us is there was an article in the News Express that you wanted to talk about earlier today.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify to the fiscal court and to the public in regards to an article in today's paper in Appalachian News Express in regards to our contractual agreement with the city of Williamson. They have posted today that the annual increase for the contract would be $225,000 for the city of Williamson. And if you'll look at the spreadsheet that I give you all there in your folder, if you'll notice, the first two rows of lines is actually the gallons per water we purchased through the city of Williamson. And at the very bottom, I just did a simple spreadsheet showing you the current rate per 1,000 gallons, which is $1.68 per 1,000. And also, the next line item is proposed increase per 1,000 gallons. The proposed increase was 15 cents per 1,000 gallons. And then the final rate. And if you'll notice over there under the annual total, second line item, $38,847.21 would be the annual total. And I give a total monthly increase of $3,237.27. So it was just, I guess, assume a clerical error that was in the paper today.
So that's, I know another issue that is not necessarily on the topics that you've set forth for the meeting tonight, but that you've been notified that the city of Pikeville is also going to increase the amount that it charges the Mountain Water District for water. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Would you explain that to us and how that's going to impact the Mountain Water District and its customers?
City of Pikeville approached us for a request of 50% increase to our purchase of city water from them. And the district had to sit down and started working negotiations in regard to it. And basically it ended up in our discussions back and forth that currently at the time being it's become a case with the Public Service Commission in regards to it. Depending on the final number and the cost to the district, as far as that, I could give it at a future once we've hashed out numbers. Right now, we've made them a counter offer in order to be able to extend our length of our agreement with them in order to receive our funding that we need for rural development in order to fund the radio read project that we have.
So basically, as I understand it, Mountain Water reads meters. They drive by and there's a remote control that reads the water usage from someone's home, so you don't have to have someone actually drive out, walk up to the meter and look at it, correct?
Correct. Drive by with a laptop.
And Mountain Water, the boards or prior boards have never really set any money aside to replace those batteries and those meters. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what will the cost be to replace the batteries?
To replace the radio read meters, it was originally estimated about $3.1 million for the project and about another $350,000 in grants. So it ended up being around 3.4, 3.5 range.
Are you anticipating, so how much of that will be, so basically the Mountain Water District has applied for a grant from Rural Development, correct?
Yes, sir.
To help pay for a portion of the cost of replacing the batteries in these meters?
Yeah, to replace the radio read meters.
Okay. Do you have to replace the whole meter, or is it just the battery?
The whole thing in this particular case.
All right. And when were those meters installed?
I'm thinking it was in '05. And the anticipated life of one is supposed to be 10 years. So we've reached kind of beyond that.
Are you having a problem now where you can't read meters because they're either?
We started an in-house project of replacing the ones that are failing. We have been, out of our funding, or excuse me, out of in-house funds, we have been spending probably $50,000 to $60,000 a month towards purchase of new radio read meters. So our staff's been installing them as they fail. We've probably been averaging, as of late, between 300 and 400 a month on failure rate.
300 to 400 per month?
Yes, sir.
And do you know why no money was ever set aside to replace those meters? I don't want to put you on the spot, Roy, because you have to answer to your board, but I will be the first to say that there will be an entirely new board before the term of this court is concluded. I think that's a fair statement. We need people on the board that are going to be looking down the road for these kind of issues. So here we are, when you have 300 to 400 meters a month failing and no money to replace them. It's very similar to the solid waste problems that the courts encountered. But is there an explanation of why no money was set aside?
I just think it's a lack of funding for one, and probably a lack of planning for the future.
So the cost of about $3.45 million to replace the meters, correct?
Yeah.
How much of that will be picked up under the Rural Development Grant? How much is the grant?
The grant part is about $350,000, if I remember right.
And the rest of it is from a loan?
Yeah, 3.1 on the loan.
Is that KIA?
RD.
Rural Development, okay.
But now the district has, I will compliment our staff and our employees. We have went at it fairly hard charging at it. We've installed approximately 3,500 units.
And how many more to go?
Roughly 13,000.
Ray, Judge, the initial 3.4 was for 16,500 meters or 17,000, so it's going to be less. It'll end up being less because of what they paid out of operating funds in the last year or so.
All right. So the total's not going to end up being quite the $3.45 million because some of them have already been replaced, correct?
Correct.
So probably somewhere around 20 to 25% have already been replaced. The loan that will be taken out from rural development, do you anticipate any type of rate increase to have to pay the debt service on that loan?
I would assume right now that there may be a pass-through. I'm not sure yet as far as that goes.
And when you say a pass-through, you're talking about a rate increase just to pass that on to?
Possibly.
Okay. Now, there was several years ago, as you know, there was a lot of controversy over utility management group and accusations that I received money from UMG. And the good part about being in this seat now is I have an opportunity to set the record straight. And I ask you to bring me the financials for the reserves, and it looks like that, correct me if I'm wrong, but when Utility Management Group's contract was terminated during the Deskins administration, at that time, the district had a depreciation reserve balance of $881,412. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so now it's down to 851,506.08. So there's actually a little less money 3 years after UMG left. Is that correct?
What happened there is that 30,000, some of that was moved into the O&M fund. Once it was fully funded, that money could be put into the operations and maintenance fund. It's probably why the 30,000. But you are correct in your.
I mean, the money's not there. And that was one of the big concerns about UMG was that, and there was allegations that their cash reserves, the district's cash reserves were depleted, but in fact, when they left, the cash reserves were more than twice what they were when UMG came into office. Isn't that true?
Yeah, you get about 860, 70 in each of them, 881, 860.
So when UMG took over, I think it was in 04, 05, and the numbers go back to 05, there was 430,000 in the reserve account, and when they left, there was 880. So that's 2 times the amount of money, correct?
Yeah.
That's true, isn't it? And then the depreciation reserve balance that was required is actually, when they left, there was more money than what was actuarially required, correct?
Correct.
All right. It looks like that the depreciation reserve balance fund was 105.97% of what was required when they left. Is it correct, Mr. Spears?
Probably, yes.
So let's go to the repair and maintenance fund. Again, when looks like about the time UMG took over, there was $412,000 in the repair and maintenance reserve fund. And when they left, it was up to $866,000. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
So accusations and statements that UMG had depleted all of the reserves or a substantial part of the reserves, that's not true, is it?
The funds, they were fully funded when they left.
What's that?
They were fully funded when they left.
So if someone made an accusation that UMG was responsible for depleting most of the reserves for Mountain Water District, that would not be true, would it?
Obviously, it's not true.
Okay. And no one at the board came out and said that those accusations were false, did they?
I get typically every month give the board what your reserve balances are.
Did you hear anyone at the board say that those accusations were false?
Specifically what accusation, I guess?
That UMG had depleted all the reserves or a substantial part of Mountain Water's reserves?
I don't recall, no.
No, you don't recall anyone saying that's not true?
No, I don't recall anybody saying it's not true, but what I'm getting at is specifically, I'd have to look at the minutes to see if it was, they said it, I don't know.
And what I'm getting at here, Mr. Spears, just so the people who listen to this and who watch it on Facebook understand, is I think it's important with all the negative and all these accusations that the people understand the truth. And you're the CPA for the district, correct?
Yes.
And so it's not true, and I want this on public record, that UMG did not deplete the depreciation or the reserve, did not deplete the reserve account or the repair and maintenance account. Isn't that true?
That's true. They were fully funded.
Okay. Now, it looks like in 2005 that there was only $64,000 in the operations and maintenance reserve account. Is that correct?
That was the balances that Kerry put together, yes.
What is that account used for?
Typically, the way that account works is, and I think it's a rural development, Judge, is once you don't have to put any money into it until the depreciation reserves are the depreciation reserves already in repair and maintenance is KIA. And so you really don't have to fund it until the other is fully funded. And then you fund it up to 6 months of expenditures, if I remember correctly.
So Kentucky infrastructure requires a reserve. Is it on the repair and maintenance or is it on the operations and maintenance?
That's the repair and maintenance reserve.
Okay, so that's the KIA. But it looks like if you go over to the operations and maintenance reserve, there's just really not been a lot of money set aside at any point in time.
There was no real requirement till those other two were fully funded.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the reason there was never really any activity in those accounts.
Now, there's been also, I think 2015, Mountain Water District had a rate increase. I think it was 135%. Is that correct, Roy? Was that what it was?
If I recollect right, I think the sewer was 140-some% and the water might have been around 30%.
Okay. So that was the first rate increase in 17 years. Isn't that true?
17 or 18, I think 96 or 97, right?
Do you have any explanation? Because, you know, like most families, you know, we try to live on a budget. There's a lot of people who are customers of Mountain Water. And one of the things I would just like to point out is that there are a lot of people on fixed income that have been affected by solid waste rate increases, power bill increases, and the cost of living is going up here. There's no question about that.
Absolutely.
When you see a 30 or 40% rate increase on water and 135 or 40% increase on sewer at one time, that really disproportionately impacts people on fixed income. Do you know why the Mountain Water District went 17 or 18 years without seeking any kind of rate increase? It would seem to me that small incremental rate increases will be much easier for people on fixed incomes to absorb into their budget rather than getting hit with a 40 or 50% increase. And sort of the same kind of thing happened with solid waste. I think, would you agree with that, Mike?
I agree 100%.
Any explanation as to why that the district went so long?
I don't know unless, you know, I have no idea.
And even at a time when, you know, gasoline was going up, the cost of insurance is going up, electric bills are going up for the power. How much, Roy, how much is the power bill every month for the Mountain Water District?
100 and some
Somewhere
thousand.
probably between 85 and 100,000
Every month?
every month.
And that's gone up substantially, just like everybody else, correct?
Yes, sir.
So even when all these costs were escalating, the board didn't take any steps to have incremental rate increases to try to offset those costs. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, there was no rate increases filed from 96 to 14 or whatever that period was, 96, 97.
Mike, is it fair to say that dug a pretty big financial hole for the Mountain Water District?
I think obviously it did, yes. I mean, it's, you know, gasoline, health insurance, all the, you know, you compare 96 to 14, it's pretty.
And Roy, how many employees does the Mountain Water District have now?
Approximately 62.
Now, when UMG left, do you know how many it had?
Not right off the bat, but it would be within that close, 2 or 3 of that number.
In the 50-something range?
Upper 50s probably.
Okay. Could you get that number? As you know, one of the concerns that the members of the court have is the fact that the CERS, the County Employee Retirement System contributions for the employers, is going up through the roof. It's hitting the health departments. It's hitting fiscal courts. It's hitting their quasi-governmental entities like the Mountain Water District. And I'd like to see some information about the number of employees from when Mountain Water took back over the operation till now, if you could get that for us. I remember an issue that came up back when I was in the state senate that talking about the debt that Mountain Water had. And it was my opinion when I served in the state senate that a lot of the financial problems that Mountain Water had was because of the amount of debt that the district had taken on. Was that a problem at some point, Mike?
Well, yeah, obviously the debt service will eat you. We all know that, just like county or us.
And specifically what I'm getting at, and I think Roy and I had a conversation, there were projects that were funded with loans that were taken out that did not generate enough money in water sales to even service the debt. Isn't that factual, Roy?
I would assume some projects would probably be borderline on debt service.
So I remember there was some discussion over the Lower Johns Creek project. When it was done, there was a substantial amount of debt taken on.
Was that debt or was that?
I know we put some coal severance
all coal
tax.
severance.
I was thinking there was some debt in that as well.
I can get you that answer for sure. I can dig
But,
that.
but when I looked at it, it was patently obvious to me that some of the problems were due to the fact that some of these expansions just simply wouldn't service the debt through the revenue they brought in.
Obviously, because, you got so much space between houses.
Roy, what is the current amount of bond indebtedness that Mountain Water's carrying?
If you'll look at the insert we've got in the folder, the total bonded term debt is $12,181,960.33.
And has that amount been going down as bond indebtedness have been paid off or debts have been serviced?
Yes.
And it looks like another $623,655 in bank term indebtedness, Mike, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's for just various loans.
Vehicles, equipment, things, operating equipment, things of that nature.
Most of those you see with the V on there is vehicle related.
Let's talk about sustainability, because one of the issues that sort of came up is the number of customers. I mean, I know we talked about population loss. Where's the district at in terms of customers?
Okay, that's also an insert in there. I basically give you from 2005 to 2018. And if you'll notice, probably hitting about year 2013, we hit our peak at 17,145 customers. And as to date, based on the number, there's a 3.11% drop or decline.
And that's actually less than I thought it would be. So, Roy, why don't you bring us up to speed? Is there any questions at this point from the members of the court? I know that the members are probably going to want to talk to you about some projects. We've had a lot of people calling wanting water line extensions, and I think when you came in the office last week, we had somebody that called in that we talked about one. Would you just update us on the projects, where we are on the various projects that Mountain Water's working on?
Sure. Bear with me. All right. There's an insert in there. It gives you a list of projects. Some of these are under construction. Some of it's going through funding agencies. But starting with a list on the water side, we have the radio read meter replacement project. The project is to replace all radio read meters within the district system. And we're currently working on the loan with RD on it and trying to get it finished and closed out, and also negotiating with City of Pikeville on their contract in regards to it. The Toonerville Bridge DOT relocation project, it's just basically relocating a line for them for convenience of construction of a new bridge at Toonerville, which is, maybe some people don't know where Toonerville is, but it's close to the state line located on 460. The water line project or relocation is complete now and ready for the Department of Highways to begin their work. The Huddy project is another DOT relocation project. It is in two locations on Route 199 in the area of McVeigh, and it's just to conveniently relocate some lines there for road construction. The relocation of the Johns Creek Railroad Meat House booster pump stations out of the floodplain. Though that's the title of this is the same, but this is related to Phelps 1 and Phelps 2 booster pump stations, and we are now moving forward in the design and complete the permit or approve the Division of Water. We met them this past week, and they have authorized us to go ahead and bid the project, and that will give us quite a bit of funds through the FEMA hazard mitigation to get these two projects constructed. On the sewer side, we're in the process of closing out our Douglas wastewater treatment upgrade project. That is a new technology that the district has put in. It's membrane technology. It's the first of its kind in the state of Kentucky as far as on the sewer side. And it's been online since August of last year. And the next item is the Belfry Pond Sewer Project. This project is being processed with rural development, and this will give sewer to the customers in the area of running from Cherry Bottom back towards Forest Hills. Then there's a Phelps Hydrology Study Project. This is to allow us to do an impact or current size studies for our lines inside the Phelps system. There are some needed upgrades to that area as far as pressure issues on one of the lines or systems, and it also affects the failure of residential grinder units that fail within those confines. That gives you a quick update in regards to just ongoing projects.
Roy, we appreciate that. One of the issues that I asked you to look at was whether, as you know, currently from our landfill, leachate is being processed at the City of Pikeville Sewage Treatment Plant, and that contract with the City of Pikeville for solid waste, I think, is coming up before too awful long. Chuck, do you remember when that contract is up? When's the contract up with the City of Pikeville? Do you recall specifically? I can't recall either, but it's coming up here before too long. And I've asked you, Roy, to look and see whether we could process the leachate at the Douglas plant or any of the other plants owned by Mountain Water District. Have you got an answer on that yet?
I've made a few phone calls this evening. I did get up with Dennis Minch, that's the gentleman I mentioned to you before about, is currently reviewing the data that I forwarded him that Deputy Judge Hickman gave me. And he's reviewed that and told me today that, the plant that I give him was the Phelps Reprogram one, because it's an SBR plant. I've checked also with Avivo in regards to the new technology and new plants. I think they're pushing and leaning against that. But in his data that he reviewed, he's talking pretty confident that we may be able to address that situation at the Phelps Reprogram plant.
Okay, but you don't think you could do it at the Caney, at the new Douglas plant?
I've not got anything in writing yet from Avivo or an email, but just listen to a representative's talk today that I think they're shunning away from the new technology running that type of material through it.
If you could just get us an answer to that as soon as you can, that would help us as we move forward on the City of Pikeville issue.
I'll have you a definite answer sometime next week.
All right. Any questions about the ongoing projects, water or sewer?
The only one on the Belfry Sewer project, I've had numerous people ask me what was their monthly bill be on that. Do you have an idea of what their monthly bill
It will be the current rate that the district already has, and that's $37.73 for the first 2,000 gallons and $16.17 per 2,000 after that. If you base it on roughly what we consider being an average of 4,500 gallons usage, it's around $78.15.
Okay. Does that increase for numbers of years, or is that just?
That's the current rate, and that's what it'll stay at right now.
Okay. All right.
And it's also the rate that the RD has approved. They kept our rate. There's no increase in regards to the Belfry project. And just to go ahead, I might as well go ahead and mention water. Water currently right now is $23.35 for the first 2,000. And for the next 2,000, next 1,000, those beyond that, it's $8.18. It does have a number further down the line, but after quite a bit of usage. But at that rate for 4,500 gallons, you're still looking around $43.80 per month on that one.
Roy, is there any grants that we can get out there to maybe build another water plant in the future?
As far as grants?
Anything,
Well, it's just like anything else. I guess the judge spoke earlier about coal severance and some other items. It's hard to get to grant funding at the time right now. It's pretty competitive, but in some cases right now, where especially water loss comes into play and some other items, we might be able to get some items pushed, but the funding is either going to come through KIA and loan in with those, which is lower interest rate loan, or rural development, some of those ARC, maybe there's some funding in that. But mostly what you're gonna look at right now is KIA and RD to fund another plant. Judge, can I back up just a minute on the project?
You absolutely may.
I had two small water line projects that I've forwarded to Commissioner Tackett and Commissioner Robertson. They're in the handouts. One location is River Road of Draffam Waterline Extension. I've informed the fiscal court we do have funding in an account on the side of the district for water line extensions for the fiscal court for $104,401.60 currently. The residents on River Road of Draffam have already come into the office and paid their tap fee and deposit in order to move this along. They've already, as Commissioner Tackett said, they've already put some skin into the game. So,
And I hope we can do that down around Sycamore, Lower Johns Creek. Those people down there are needing water bad too, if we can work on that later on down the road or whatever. And that little brushy hollow over there. I know you can't do this overnight. I know it's not made to do that, but you know, those people down there, I know we've got some in Sycamore, but we don't have a whole lot up in there, do we?
back to the project, I went ahead and provided you with the cost that's there on the third page. I broke it out into labor, materials, equipment, and it's just basically a cost estimate. And this estimate is based on us performing this work in-house instead of contracting it out. That way there'd be cost savings towards the fiscal court's monies, and this small extension, I think at the current time, the district can handle that length of project.
No.
And keep in mind, it's an estimate. The best guess estimate, it's also got factored engineering design and contingency. But the total cost estimate for the Draffam project's $9,374.09. Since the customers or residents in that community has already come this far in the game, I would appreciate approval to go ahead and authorize the district to construct this particular project. And then the next one, I have the left fork of Little Fork of Caney Waterline Extension. That's located off Route 611. We've been approached by some residents in that area. And in this particular one, you'll find maps for both those in there too, showing the service areas. Once again, you're still under $10,000. Estimate is $9,568.45. This one, I would like your approval on it also under the conditions or pending that the community or the residents are interested in it. Does the same thing as the River Road does, pay for their tap fees and their deposits.
Has the Elkhorn project been planned, I'm sorry, not the Elkhorn project, but the Caney project been planned with, in compliance with the PSC regulatory guidelines?
Of what I propose here?
Yes.
Yes.
When do you have to get PSC approval or Division of Water approval on these short line extensions?
I've got it factored in here for the engineering design. That's part of it would be submitted to the Division of Water.
Is it like over 900 feet? Is that what it is that's required to have?
I get different reviews in regards to that. I've heard some try to say 1,000 feet. I've heard some say a foot. I've not got anybody that can tell me actual number as far as footage.
Before we move on from the left fork of Little Fork of Caney, is there a motion to authorize Mountain Water District to draw down from the water project account that we have, the water line extension funds, in the amount of $9,568.45?
Motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. Now, will this work will be done in-house, correct?
Yes, sir.
Does the district have a crew that does short line extensions, is dedicated to that kind of work?
Sir, we do not. We have to juggle staff around to make sure it works.
And do you also need authorization for the drafting project as well?
Yes, sir.
Because it's not on the agenda, that's why I was asking. Is there a motion to allow Mountain Water District to draw down $9,374.09 from the water line extension funds provided by the Pike Fiscal Court to the district from 2009, 2010? Current balance is $104,401.60, and that money is still in the account for water line extensions.
Motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Tackett to authorize $9,374.09 for short line extensions on River Road at Draft, and is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Booth. Is there any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth? Judge Jones?
Yes. Now, before we go on to some of the other issues, I also ask you, as you know, we've had some significant problems with cash flow in the solid waste system. We had one gentleman said some pretty nasty stuff to the members of our staff, and said that, he had paid his bill and he wasn't going to pay any additional amount. And when we go back and look, he had paid his bill in full in March, but he hadn't paid it for 3 years. And as you know, it's very difficult for us to collect solid waste bills. We've had some success with putting those on the property taxes, but we can't continue to provide solid waste service if we don't improve our collection. And I've asked the solid waste staff, and I've met with you on a couple occasions. Roy, let me say you've been nothing but professional and absolutely a delight to work with, and we appreciate that greatly. And you have gone above and beyond to help us. I've asked you to check with the Public Service Commission about what would be required to put the water or the solid waste bills on the water bill. Now, I know the Southern Water District in Floyd County has utilized that method to collect solid waste bills, and it's been very successful. And I know there's not 100% overlap between solid waste customers and Mountain Water customers, but if we could do that, it would save, I think, the county a substantial amount of money and help us increase. At some point in the future, we might be able to roll those garbage bills back some. That would be the goal, I think, for all of us. And if we could increase collections, it would help us deal with the immediate cash flow problems and then the long-term problems. Have you found anything out from the PSC on that, Roy?
I submitted a letter on March 13th to the Public Service Commission for staff opinion, and as of yet, I still haven't heard anything from them. I also sent another letter, a follow-up letter on April the 30th, and I've yet to receive any kind of comments or staff opinion in regards to it.
I'll personally follow up with the PSC to see if we can't get an answer on this in the next few days. We need an answer on that, and I appreciate you taking making the effort to try to get an answer for us on that. Any questions on that? All right. I think the last thing we wanted to talk about was the Belfry Sewer project. And Roy, what is the total cost of that project?
The grant funding is $4,775,846. And the loan amount is $3,653,000, which is around 8.4. I don't have the total between the two, I apologize, but it's around 8.4 counting the grant and the loan amount.
So how many customers signed up for that project so far?
Approximately 190 new customers.
And anticipated any additional customers?
The only other thing that we looked at doing is, and are going to do, is the sewer that's currently being treated for construction of a plant. If the sewer that's currently being treated at Forest Hills can be pumped to the new plant instead of going to the city of Williamson for treatment. And the same thing on the 119 corridor from Forest Hills to what they call Appalachian Plaza, where the CVS store is. That would pick up that much more flow.
So there was basically two options. There were two options to provide sewer service in the Belfry Pond Creek area. One would be to build a sewage treatment plant. The other would be to contract with Williamson and just install lines and pump it to Williamson, correct?
Yes, sir.
What would be the average cost per month to install per customer for these 190 customers?
If you look at it overall, I've got three different one on the spreadsheet. One shows the total new customers for monthly cost is $40.05 for the 190. And if you count the existing customers that you bring from Forest Hills and the 119 corridor there, it would be $16.95 per month. And then if you look at it from system-wide, and if RD was going to do any kind of increase, it would have been system-wide overall for everybody instead of looking at it for the new customers. But based on that amount is $3.16 per month for the wastewater treatment plant and wastewater collection system based on the whole system.
Okay. So let me see if I understand this. The anticipated cost per customer for the 190 will be $40.05.
Correct.
If you build a new plant. And then if you were able to get additional money, would it take additional money to pick up these customers from Forest Hills to the Appalachian Plaza?
It's all part of the design currently that's in the project.
Okay. So that would lower the cost to $16.35?
$16.95, yes.
$16.95. And then where does the $3.16 come in?
Well, if rural development would have stated in this case that there were going to be an increase overall for the rates, it would have been system-wide. It would have been everybody that's inside the district's sewer system, whether it be Shelby Valley or Williamson or Belfry or Phelps. It would spread the costs out to everyone. In this particular case, rural development did not increase our rates. They left them the same as what they are, so there would be no increase. Okay. So if you based it at all, that rate would be $3.16 per customer for the whole system.
All right. So if the $16.95 a month is assuming that you pick up the additional 250 plus customers.
Yeah, the flow from Forest Hills and that 119 corridor.
And the less customers that you pick up, the more that bill would be. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. If we go on to further up, I get the names mixed up. From Murphy Bottom on up like to Jury Bottom or up Hardy or Stone, either one of those, we could pick up more customers.
But on the 190, if you don't pick up more customers, you're looking at a base rate of about $40.05, correct?
Correct.
But if you just expanded just instead of building a new plant, you sent the lines over, built new collection lines and shipped it over to West Virginia, you'd be looking at about 14.85.
Yes,
month,
the new
correct?
customers on the second page for collection system only is $14.85 per month. And
so it's about two-thirds cheaper, roughly.
And then with the flow coming from Forest Hills and the 119 corridor, it'd be well, never mind, I told that wrong.
Can you service the debt on 190 customers? Can you service the debt on a $3.6 million loan with 190 customers.
I think obviously you can't. Not at 190, the 499, I'd have to do the math, but the 190 would make it very difficult, even at $70 a month.
It would make it difficult, but like I said there a minute ago, the RD didn't increase the rate increase. So if you look at it system-wide, I guess it would be 316, or you're looking at either the 190 be 405 and then the other one on the flow. That's if you do the plant and the collection system.
Okay, let's just say the plan that's currently on the drawing board of $4.775 million grant and a loan of $3.653 million. How much is the payment on the $3.653 million? What would the monthly payment on that be?
Ray, I think it's about 200,000 a year, if I remember correctly.
200,000 per year.
I think it's about right.
So you're roughly looking at what, 18,000 roughly, a little bit less than that.
16,
17,000.
I think it's between 15 and 16.
Does that take in all of the
Maybe, Roy.
restaurants and everything over there too, and the hotel on the south side over there?
I don't know the answer to that, but my math comes out at 449 customers at $16,000 payment a month would be, that's $35.63 per customer. If you're only going to be charging them, that's assuming you get 449 customers, you're going to charge them a rate of $16.95. Where's the rest of the money come from?
I think we're just miscommunicated on that. That $16.95 is what he's saying the cost per customer. Is that correct? Not the rate. The rate would be the 70, whatever the numbers he gave there earlier.
Yeah, the average bill being 78. That's just
What will the rate be? What will these customers be paying a month?
the current rate. Current rate I just gave a minute ago.
78 a month
If it's an average bill, about 4,500 gallons would be about 78.15.
or for wastewater?
Yes, sir.
78.15 a month. No, that's just sewage.
Sewer.
So you're talking roughly for the people who would get this $78.15 per month, correct?
Yes.
At that, can you cover the debt service and the operating costs? Because it's not just paying the debt, you still have to operate the system. You're going to have employee costs, power bills, all the things that go with that. Yeah. Can you cover it at that?
I haven't been asked to look at that, but I would say I know it's going to be tight because.
Well, I mean that could account for one of the reasons that Mountain Water's had the financial problems is they're doing these projects and they don't generate enough revenue to pay for themselves.
Wow.
When you factor in not just debt service but operating cost.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons that
Yeah, I think there'd been some analysis done, but not by me. Maybe the engineers. I'm not sure.
Could we get if there's any rate calculations or amortization schedules and that we could look at on that so we could see exactly what we're looking at?
Yeah, we can get the amortization schedules. I think Roy's got those from RD already.
Should.
But it would, if you built just collection lines, would the rate still be $78 per customer if you just built collection lines and contracted with Williamson?
Yes.
Yes. One thing, Judge, it's one other factor in here that's back in some of his analysis is currently if the City of Williamson decides to do sewer upgrades in our current contract, I understand that we're probably on a percentage basis of upgrading their systems as well, which we don't know what that is.
And that would be one benefit to give you some freedom from that. And I've looked at this cost-benefit analysis, and I think, Roy, you've done a great job putting that together for us. Anytime that you're buying a service or buying a product from another utility, that is problematic. You're seeing that now with with water.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I need to go back to that. On your meter, the loan and grant for the meter, that's being held up because of the contract discussions between Mountain Water and Pikeville, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
So you can't get the grant from rural development or the loan from rural development until that issue's resolved with the city of Pikeville, is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
The requirement from rural development is to have the length of time on the contract that matches the loan length of the term of the loan. And all we're asking right now is them to extend the contract as far as length and not numbers.
Has, going back to the issue, has there been any analysis about what it would cost to operate this proposed Belfry Sewer plant on a monthly basis?
Yeah, the engineers, that's Roy, hand me a copy.
Yeah, I'll give him a copy of some projections from Summit.
The engineers had some projections done based upon doing it both ways, I think, Judge. Like I said, I didn't have anything to do with that, but we can get those to you.
And I'll look over that. I've got some of these numbers here, but we'll look over it, and I think it's been a very thorough presentation. One last question. I know that having represented Martin County and all the problems, fortunately, Mountain Water doesn't have the problems that Martin County's had. What's the water loss rate for Mountain Water now?
Currently, the water loss rate, we have two forms currently. It is a form we've been using over the past years, and then PSC has another form. So if you go with the PSC form, right now we're probably in the 30-some%, low 30s in that water loss range.
And what's the industry standard? What's acceptable for a rural?
What's acceptable with Public Service Commission is 15%.
Okay. Is there any money been set aside by the water district to try to reduce the amount of line loss?
As far as setting money aside, we have not. We've been trying to implement a plan in different perspectives, from anywhere from going at it hard on leak detection to making more repairs. There was a stretch in 17, we got the numbers down quite a bit, but with the system being still its infrastructure and it's outdated, one of the things we're looking at right now is Public Service Commission has recently discussed surcharging and looking to see if maybe we could combat the water loss through possibly doing that.
The biggest concern I have, and just to close out, and some of the members may have a similar concern, is a lot of the infrastructure for Mountain Water District is aging. A lot of these lines were put in, I know some of them were put in when I was a child.
80s.
In the 80s.
70s and 80s.
And, those systems wear out. And my concern is there adequate reserves that have been set aside to deal with those problems? We don't want to end up like Martin County to where there's no money set aside and the system crumbles because of that.
I think the short answer is no, other than your debt reserves. And, you're supposed to be able to utilize those, but it's a little more complicated than just saying we can utilize the $800,000 to do this, because there's obviously a bunch of hoops, but in an emergency, we could go to RD and ask. But what you got to remember, some of ours, Mountain Waters is sewer and some is water, so whatever reserves are set aside for sewer, you couldn't use for water emergencies. Because I think Douglas Hoffman mentioned possibly utilizing some of that for even the radio read if something went, in this interim. But other than the reserves, there's no money been set aside. I know in the last year or so, they've actively been after the water loss and trying to curb water loss with short line stuff that they can do their self-repairs.
So just so we can be clear, there's been no money set aside to address line loss, and there's been no money set aside for the meters, correct?
Correct.
And I'm sure you've got lift stations, and you've got What about the water tanks? I know the big tanks have a lifespan where they're supposed to be refurbished every, 15, 20 years?
We do have a program on the large tanks that we've been implementing, and they've been going around painting and washing them out and sterilizing and, through the process of those. We have probably about 40 or 50 large tanks in the system. The rest are small skid tanks.
Well, gentlemen, I guess before I turn it over to these gentlemen, what can we do as a fiscal court to help Mountain Water provide service to its customers and to help contain the rates so that we don't see any additional rate increases? And don't say coal severance tax.
The group before us did.
And you heard my response.
Thank you, Judge. Right now, the district needs to sit down and take a hard look at it from the reserve side of it, as you said, and try to put something in place for capital projects and replacement. And we're looking at it hard right now, trying to address one of the areas that you were talking about a minute ago being outdated or aged, is especially Marbone area. A lot of that line was put in the 70s. I've recently put together some numbers for the board in regards to our line leaks and where the majority of those are located. So they give them a better idea where we need to do a plan of attack on those. The biggest part of our water loss comes through service lines, more or less. Probably about, I'm gonna guess 60% of the water loss probably would be through service lines. And those lines, the life of them will probably be expected to be about 40 years. And you see we're approaching that now, that already for like the Marbone area. That line becomes, if you want to use the word, brittle, and starts falling apart, and we have issues, so we replace those service lines. We're trying to get a program started where we start replacing the service lines for Marbone as a plan of attack from that perspective.
Well, we're trying to develop a capital plan as well, and when you get something put together, we'd like to take a look at that. Okay. Gentlemen, it's been a long meeting. We're going to try to speed this up a little bit. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, do you all have any questions?
Thank you.
Roy, thank you all. Mike, thank you very much. The next matter on the agenda is the adoption of a resolution approving the execution of a municipal road aid cooperative program agreement between the Pike County Fiscal Court, acting for the unincorporated urban place in the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, and accepting all roads referred to therein as being urban roads which are part of the unincorporated urban place. Hope that's stated correctly. Is there a motion? We have a motion by Commissioner Booth. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second by Commissioner Tackett to adopt the resolution of the Municipal Road Aid Cooperative Program Agreement. Is there any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. The next matter is the approval to award the RFP for broadband feasibility study. Eric, I'm going to skip ahead over this. Well, Eric, come on up and yes.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
So we met with the Pike County Broadband Committee and put out an RFQ for qualified engineering firms to do a feasibility study for Pike County for broadband service. We received 3 proposals. The committee reviewed those proposals and scored them based upon what was in the written statement of qualifications, and then the committee interviewed all 3 firms, and upon the completion of the interviews, the committee chose to award the contract to Jigsaw Enterprises, LLC, to complete the feasibility study for Pike County for broadband service. So the committee is submitting that recommendation to the fiscal court for approval.
All right, so what you're asking for is a approval to award the RFP for broadband feasibility study to Jigsaw Enterprises?
Correct.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the award for the RFP for the broadband feasibility study to Jigsaw Enterprises. Motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Robertson. I know he's been involved in this.
Yes.
Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Tackett. Any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. The next matter, Eric, stay right there, is the adoption of a resolution in support of a Center for Rural Development Technology Assistance Program grant in the amount of up to $106,000 for additional funding to complete a feasibility study for Pike County broadband. Can you just briefly?
The committee has been fortunate enough to receive 2 grants, one from Economic Development Administration and another grant from Kentucky Power to complete their study. We have, as the court has approved Jigsaw Enterprises LLC to do the study, now we enter into the what the scope that the committee wants completed, the areas of the county, and what that fee is going to be. So this request is just an anticipation that if the contract amount is more than what the grant award is, then we can go to the Center for Rural Development for additional monies to match with the money that the committee has currently right now to match with it to complete the study.
Is there a motion for the adoption of resolution in support of a Center for Rural Development Technology Assistance Program grant in the amount of up to $106,000 for additional funding to complete a feasibility study for Pike County broadband? Motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Robertson. Is there a second? Second. We have a second by Commissioner Booth. Is there any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. We have 2 resolutions on the agenda to authorize filing of a grant application for 2 single county coal severance tax projects. Would there be any sentiment to pass over those to the next meeting, or Sharon, is that something we need to get out on the Shelby Valley Fire Department? Let's do the Shelby Valley Fire Department tonight, and let's do that one, then we'll talk about the other one. On the agenda is the adoption of a resolution of the Pike County Fiscal Court authorizing the filing of an LG House Bill 200 project proposal grant application in the amount of $12,500 to construct a bay on Shelby Valley Fire Department Station Number 3 and approval to execute all related documents. This started out at a $47,500 request for coal severance, correct?
Yeah, I think that was a year ago.
And some of the legislators signed off. I was the only legislator, I think, that didn't sign off on it, and I requested that we look to other sources instead of depleting what severance tax we had. And you were able to secure
USDA rural.
USDA Rural Development Grant in the amount of $35,000.
No, that grant will be $47,500, and the match will be the $12,500.
So we're actually getting more money.
Yes.
With less out of pocket by the county, correct?
Yes, we just needed the matching funds.
All right, great job. And we don't have to pay that $47,500 back, is that correct?
No.
All right. So instead of using $47,000 in county money, we're only using $12,500.
Right.
Good deal. Thank you for your hard work on this. Is there a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing a House Bill 200 grant application in the amount of $12,500 in local government economic development single county funds to match the USDA grant to construct a truck bay extension for Shelby Valley Fire Department Station Number 3 and approve the execution of all related documents?
Motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second? Second. We have a second by Commissioner Booth. Is there any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. We have a lot of things to talk about on this trail system. We have on here also a House Bill 200 project proposal. Would there be any sentiment to pass over that till we can have a more detailed discussion at the next court meeting about the trail system here in Pike County? Is there a motion to pass over that to the next court's meeting? Is there we have a motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second? Second. We have a second by Commissioner Booth. Any question or discussion? I know Commissioner Robertson has worked real hard on this, but I think I'd like to have it, talk about this in the next meeting in conjunction with the Trails Committee. Assistant County Attorney Kevin Keene has been on the phone talking to Rich Ornstein in Frankfurt today about the legal. This is a little bit more complicated, but I think it's doable. But I know that Commissioner Robertson's ready to move on this yesterday. So if there's no question or discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the roll and pass on over this.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. Next matter on the agenda is the approval to execute an agreement with the Rowan County Detention Center to house inmates from Pike County and Rowan County Detention Center. Mr. Stacy, I was told you have an explanation for the need for this.
This is just an agreement with Rowan County Jail that if Pike County resident gets housed down there, there's a reimbursement rate of $35 that we agree to pay, and I ran it past the jailer and he okayed it. So we just need court approval.
Is there a motion to approve the execution of agreement with the Rowan County Detention Center to house inmates from Pike County in the Rowan County Detention Center? Motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Robertson. Is there a second? Second. We have a second by Commissioner Tackett. Is there any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. Next matter on the agenda is the awarding of bids. Mr. Fan, you have anything tonight? Thank you, sir. Good news. We're going to jump around a little bit. We have the Pike County let's go ahead. Mr. Keene, we need a break anyway. Mr. Keene, would you please read the appropriate or relevant Kentucky Revised statutes relating to entry into executive session?
We'll need to enter into executive session tonight, according to KRS 61-810, paragraph C and F, to discuss proposed and pending litigation and to discuss specific personnel matters.
Is there a motion to enter into executive session? Motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second? Second. We have a second by Commissioner Booth. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Judge Jones?
Yes. We are in recess for executive session. All right, we are out of executive session. I need a motion to adjourn from executive session. We have a motion by Commissioner Booth. Is there a second? We have a second by Commissioner Tackett. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
All right, we are back in session, and did I say yes? It's been a long day. No. I said yes. So, all right, we are back in regular session, and my personnel recommendations are, it is my motion to accept Dalton Pigg's resignation, to amend the court order from May 1st to state that Jimmy Kaiser's pay includes longevity, and to approve moving Flannery Blankenship from a light equipment operator at a 4H rate of pay to a heavy equipment operator at a 5H rate of pay plus longevity. He is on the District 5 road lot. Is there a second? Second. We have a second by Commissioner Robertson. Any question or discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. I'm going to have to go back to the beginning here because we passed over a whole bunch of stuff. We have on the agenda an authorization to change the name of County Road CR 4103 from Sulphur Springs Road to James Road. I want to move that we pass over that to the next meeting. Is that something that needs to be done tonight? Is there,
Want to do this? Nothing, just a vote. Because we've already had the public hearing.
okay. Mr. Keene, would you please give us your report from the public hearing today?
Yes, Judge, we did have a public hearing today before the court meeting pursuant to KRS 179-330. As I understand it from discussing it with Road Commissioner Little, the appropriate notices were placed upon the roadway in conspicuous spots as well as local businesses and was advertised in the local newspaper. We had nobody come forward for the meeting today, and likewise, there was no notices either sent in or called in to any of the representatives of the court. So if we want to go ahead and vote on this road name change, I think we're authorized to do so.
And you had to actually find the statute, I think, is it's a pretty strange statute. It's not where it should be.
It's in an odd spot.
It's in an odd spot, okay. It's been a long day. Is there a motion to authorize the change of the name of County Road CR 4103 from Sulphur Springs Road to James Road? Motion. Motion by Commissioner Robertson. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Tackett. Is there any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is a first reading of a proposed road ordinance adopting Chick Junior Lane into the county road system. Mr. King, would you please present the first reading?
Yes, we can do that, Judge. As I understand it, Mr. Little, this was brought to our attention by a petition of the residents on that roadway. Is that correct? And the petition we have signed, is that by all the residents abutting that roadway?
Well, no, there is yeah, it is. But there's a trailer port at the end, but this road doesn't take in that.
Okay. So the road we're taking in, this does actually contain signatures from all those residents?
It does.
Okay. This will be the first reading, so there'll be no vote tonight. Whereas it has been determined to be in the best interest of the public for the Pike County Fiscal Court to formally accept public roads into the official county road system, and whereas KRS 178.010 subsection 1B defines a county road as a public road which has been accepted by the fiscal court into the county road system, whereas the fiscal court finds that the 30-foot minimum cannot be met due to the topography of the road or other extraordinary circumstances, the 30-foot width would not be appropriate. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the fiscal court of the Pike County, Commonwealth of Kentucky, Section 1, that the following road, being public in nature, being is formally hereby and officially accepted in the Pike County road system and shall hereafter be a part of said system. Road number, District 2, road name, Chick Junior Lane, length 320 feet. Noted approved by the fiscal court this is the 7th day of May, 2019.
All right. This matter will be advertised and be ready to be acted on at the next fiscal court meeting in 2 weeks. The next matter is the approval of the Pike County Road Supervisor's recommended road maintenance plan. Because we've been here so long, this thing is about 20 pages long. And since we have a member of the court that has had a little spill, it would be my recommendation that we approve this as submitted, and we'll make a copy available in the road supervisors and the judge's office in case anyone likes to know. We need to look at seeing if we could put this on online weekly. You know, if we had it, put it on Facebook or online in some way where people could check to see what work's been done and what's upcoming, that may help answer some of our constituents.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and we'll work on that. We've got some folks here. We might get Mr. Kaiser to help you with that. Is there a motion to approve the Pike County Road Supervisor's recommended road maintenance list as submitted? We have a motion by Commissioner Booth. Is there a second? We have a second by Commissioner Tackett. Is there any question or discussion? See none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is treasurer's business.
Judge, I only have 2 items tonight. The first one is to acknowledge receipt of the treasurer's monthly financial statement ending April 30th, 2019.
I think I signed off on that earlier today. Is there a motion to acknowledge receipt of the treasurer's monthly financial statement ending April 30th, 2019? Motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Robertson. And Mr. Stacy, it looks like, are we in better condition financially than you anticipated that we would have been in at this point in the fiscal year?
Yes. Yes, much.
Much better?
Yes.
Compared to last year, how's it look?
Yes, much better.
Much better. All right. Well, in fact, was there even a financial statement at this point last year?
No.
Okay. That's what I thought. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any question or discussion about the financial statement ending April 30th, 2019? If none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes.
The last item I have is to authorize checks for lodging, registration, and expensing for the county coroner or for any deputy coroner to attend the Kentucky Coroner's Training, May 20th through the 22nd in Louisville, Kentucky. As of right now, I only have 1 deputy coroner that's going to attend, but there may be more.
Is there a motion to authorize checks for lodging, registration, expenses for the county coroner or any deputy to attend the Kentucky Coroner's Training, May 20th to 22nd, 2019 in Louisville? Is there a motion? We have a motion by Commissioner Booth. Is there a second?
Go ahead, Ronnie. Go ahead. Second.
It's 9 o'clock, guys. It's getting late. We have a second by Commissioner Tackett. Any question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Stacy. The next item is the Pike County Department of Supervisors' comments. I assume there are none. Good answer. I assume there's also no comments from the Assistant County Attorney? And Deputy Judge Executive, anything? No, sir. Commissioners? Commissioner Tack. Let's start with Commissioner.
I had a real terrible accident last Thursday evening. I just want to thank the people that called and wished me well. People that I didn't even know liked me called me. So that tickled me to death. But when you go home tonight, just hug your family and just appreciate you there, because you don't really think about it much till something like this happens. And I want to thank Ralph and his crew for coming out Sunday at Greasy Creek to clean that slide up. And I think the other 2 commissioners here too, I think they had people out too. So, you know, they do a real good job, and you all do a real good job for us too. So I just want to thank you.
Commissioner Booth.
Yeah, I want to also thank the road crew at Belfry that had to come out Sunday and clean up the slide, and I'd like to thank them for doing that. And we had one Thursday night also, had a tree down. They come out and stayed a while with that, so I'd like to thank them for that. And next Tuesday, the 14th, we're having a ribbon cutting over to Belfry Fire Department Station 3 at Hardy. I'd like everyone that could to come out and join us for that. Thank you.
Commissioner Tackett.
I've got a few things I want to talk about, Judge. I hope we don't stay here another 30, 40 minutes on this, but we've been working on some things, and it's about a county cruise in the courts with this. We got other people at the city. Actually, who all's been putting their minds together is the city of Pike will co-run. Pike County School System's going to let us use the Pike Central parking lot, Elkhorn City, Sheriff's Department, jailer, all the court, 5 car clubs in Pike County. It's just going to be a thing that people can bring these old cars out and, you know, maybe bring some outsiders in to spend some money in the county. They're going to be 5 altogether. There'll be 3 at Pike Central, 2 in the city. The flyers should be out towards the end of this week, first of next week. Another thing we're working on is we put the trail ride, at Lick Creek, we put the trail ride back together, set the dates on it. This is not costing the taxpayers no money either. The judge and the 3 commissioners is going to pitch in and buy the food and feed them. But it's another thing that we're pushing is there's 8 electric hookups up there. When our lake at Fish Trap is clean, we've got the most beautiful lake they are in the state of Kentucky or around here. And that's something that the people of this county or this state can come and use and have easy access to the lake. It's something we want to push for Pike County. The ride will be June the 1st, first Saturday in June. September the 14th will be the second Saturday in September. Starts at 8. The meal will be at 3. Another thing we had the Pride group with the cleanup up Little Robson. We did get a lot of the trash picked up there with Miss Betty Brown, and then over the weekend we've had a big slide up there, and it's been there for about a week, Fabian?
Oh, we've been working on it,
For about a week.
It's been there for a lot longer.
And this Saturday is the Pride cleanup at Fish Trap. If anybody wants to come and help, just show up. I think it starts at 8. Is that?
8 o'clock till noon. I think they furnish lunch at noon.
Yeah.
Everybody can be there, try to be there.
And that's about it, Judge. I just want to thank we've had 4 trucks from other lots up in Little Robson trying to get that cleaned up. It's a big mess. And I want to thank you all for what you do for this county. That's all, Judge.
Thank you, Commissioner Tackett. Just briefly, I think that we have the Fish Trap cleanup Saturday. I think it was this Saturday, 9 to 12. It had been rescheduled. I want to thank all the employees of the fiscal court, particularly the road department, for all the work that they've done over the last few weeks. If you're a constituent, you have a problem with solid waste, the road department, let us know. Call the judge's offices, 432-6247. If you need to get a hold of one of the commissioners, you can reach them through the same number. We appreciate everyone for being here and tuning in to the meeting. It's been a long meeting. We've got a lot of work accomplished tonight. Hopefully we can move on to some other things. We still have to get the budget finalized this month and have it in a position to pass it and get it to the Department of Local Government for their approval. Still a lot of work to be done on the budget in the next 6 weeks or so. But again, thank you all for being here. And with that being said, I would like to ask Jimmy Kaiser to say the benediction.
Lord Father, thank you for all the people that work for the county and for this court. Watch over us all. Take care of the members of this court that they make the right decisions for this county. We ask this all in your name, Father. Precious His Son's name, Jesus Christ.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Is there a motion for adjournment? We have a motion by Commissioner Tackett. Is there a second? It's been a really long day. Is there a second? I think we have a second by Commissioner Booth. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Robertson? Yes. Commissioner Tackett? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Judge Jones?
Yes, we are adjourned.